Now that we've learned a little bit about the pricing of a bond, let's look at a bond and how to record the journal entries throughout the bond's life, or at least the first start of life. So let's talk about this problem. The Royal Group issued 600,000 of 12% bonds on June 30th for 702. So again, we're issuing these at a premium because the price is greater than the face. The bonds were dated June 30th and mature on June 30th, 2021, or 21 years, 20 years later. So the market yield for bonds of similar risk is 10%, and that is why we're issuing at a premium. We're paying out 12, the market pays 10, so we're allowed to price our bond to yield that 10% return. Interest is paid semi-annually on December 31st and June 30th. So let's first prepare the entry to record the issuance of the bond on June 30th. So we're going to go in on June 30th. Now this is the issuing company, so they're going to receive cash for the bonds, and it's going to equal the price, or the face value, the price of the bonds. So we're going to put that in at 702,957. Then we're going to go on. Now, the bond payable, so let's go ahead and put the bond payable in. We're going to always credit the bond payable when we issue a bond, and that's always going to be credited at the face value because that's the amount of cash we will have to pay at the very end of the bond's life. So no matter what they pay us up front, we only have to return to the investor that $600,000. And that leaves us with the premium on bonds payable. The premium on bonds payable is simply going to be the difference. So all you need to do is take 702,957, subtract out your 600,000, and that gives you 102,957. So that's your premium. Now the carry value on the bond would be the net of these two. So on day one, we're carrying this bond at 702,957, the issue price. The carry value is always the net of the bond with its premium or discount account. All right, now the next thing says prepare the journal entry to record the interest on December 31st of year one. So that's going to be our first date. Now there's two methods we can use to record interest expense on a bond. We can use the effective interest method, or we can use the straight line method. In this case, we're actually going to use the effective interest method. So what about that? Well, when we have a bond payable, first and foremost, we're going to have interest expense. Now, to calculate the interest expense on a bond payable using the effective method, you take the carry value. Remember we said the carry value is the net of these two accounts. You're going to multiply that not by the stated rate, but by the effective rate, because that's the yield on the bond times time. So in this case, what we would need to do is take the 702 at this moment, 957. We need to multiply that by the effective rate here, and that is a 10% effective rate, and then multiply it by time. And this bond paid semi-annually, so you're going to do 6/12. Or you can simply divide it by 2 because 6/12 is 1/2. All right, so when you do that, so take 702, 957, multiply it by 10%, and then times 6/12 or divide by 2. So what that should give us, and we're going to round to the whole dollar if that's okay. So go ahead and do that and then round to the whole dollar. Give me 1 second to get in my calculator. 957 times 10%. And then we're going to divide that in half, and we get 35,148. And again, just round. I know it's not quite that. It's actually 147.85, but we're going to round up to 148. All right. Now, once we have that piece, now the next thing we need to understand is the cash payment. Well, the cash payment on a bond, the amount of cash it pays, is always the face value of the bond times the stated rate of the bond times time. Just like when we were finding the cash payment or the interest payment when we did the pricing, this is where you use the stated rate. So we're going to take the face value of our bond, which is 600,000. We're going to multiply that rate by the stated rate, 12%. Then we're going to multiply it by time, which again, this is semi-annual, so 6/12. So when we do that, so again, take your calculator, 600,000 times our 12% rate, and then simply divide it in half, and that's 36,000. So that's the amount of cash. Now notice, why is our interest expense less than our cash payment? What would cause that? Well, remember, our bond is paying 12%, but it's priced to only yield a return of 10%. So that's going to make our interest expense less than what we're actually paying simply because it's yielding a lower rate of return. So then what do? Well, then we have to amortize the premium on bonds payable, and that is simply going to be the difference between the two. And in this case, it's $852. All right. Now, keep in mind, when you amortize this, our premium then will go down. So what will happen? Well, our carry value will go up. So when we calculate the interest expense next time, our carry value will not be 702. It'll actually be a little bit less than 702. So let's talk about that. So June 30th. Again, the entry will be the exact same. Every time we pay our interest, we're going to go in and we're going to amortize a little of the premium, we're going to record the interest expense, and we're going to record the cash. Now, the cool thing about a bond, the cash payment never changes. Once you calculate that 36, assuming you can do it correctly, it will be that way. Now, the interest expense. So here's what we got to watch. Again, it's that same formula, carry value times effective rate times time. But now, notice the carry value is no longer the 702. So what do I mean? Well, notice that 102,957, that was your premium account. Now you need to take that, and we amortized 852, so subtract out the 852. So the premium now has a balance of 102,105, so $102,105. Now we net that with our 600. So at this point, our new carry value of the bond, and you can use T accounts if it helps, is 702,105. Notice the difference. It's $852 less than prior. And we're still going to multiply that by the effective rate, and still, again, we're going to divide it in half, whatever you get, times 6/12. So take 702,105, multiply that by our 10%, and then simply divide that by 2. And what you'll get, again, this is going to be a rounded result, is $35,105. Then, of course, our premium is going to be the difference there. So 36 minus 35,105. And we'll notice that we're going to amortize this time $895 in premium. And this would continue on. What would happen is this premium account over the 20 years would eventually go to 0. And once it hits 0, our carry value would equal that $600,000 so that we can pay off the bond at the end of the life. So I hope this helps you a little bit understand how to journalize some of the entries for a bond payable.